Hey, we're live.
Hey, I think we're live, so we're just gonna try it. Anybody out there watching? Anybody, I don't care. Welcome back to the show, Sidelines with Coach Steve, and today we're gonna do our college football week 6 recap with my co-host Brad Miller is back. This is our first time trying this YouTube live. I've been sitting here since 10:30 this morning, trying this out. I have it pulled up on my phone. It looks like it's working, so I think it's good to go. Um, A lot of football yesterday happened. A lot of crazy stuff happened. But before we get talking, if you're watching it, like it, subscribe, share. If I can get this on the podcast, share it out, do all that good stuff, get this out there. That's something we were wanting to do since we were 15, 16 years old. Show up Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, show them how it's really done. Hopefully one day this grows to more sports, but right now it's just college football. Um, so, Brad, what did you think yesterday?
I will say this podcast is officially like ruining, I won't say ruining, causing problems in my relationship. Uh, I've been a long time without just sitting on the couch all day and watching college football. So it felt great for me. But then my girlfriend came home. She worked 12 hours yesterday, and I got a "you're a real piece of shit" look, which was fun. And then I sent you a text at one point, the late game. It was like, well, she's home now, so my football time's over. Like, I just have to watch Grey's Anatomy now for the next 3 hours till she goes to bed.
Yep, then there's me who's more dedicated and watched all of it and took notes. So, but I'm the host, so I have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I got up early this morning and watched the games, so
All right, that's more dedication than me. I just got up and took notes from my memory.
okay.
Uh, so, like I said, guys, bear with me. Trying the StreamYard stuff. This stuff is all new to me. So, see, I could do this. Anybody looking down at this right now? Can we see this? Coach Steve did that from the cornfields. All right. So, sports topics. A couple things are sticking out to me. It's not just college football. Sports topics, we can talk about anything. I know tonight NBA finals are going on. Lakers are up 3-2 on the Miami Heat. I am not a LeBron fan whatsoever. But when Kobe passed away back in January, I kind of was like, I almost have to root for the Lakers now. I haven't been watching NBA because it's soft, the bubble's soft, but I don't know. I think the Lakers are going to win because I think Jimmy Butler's great. He's gotten so much better than when he was on the Bulls. I think the Lakers are going to win just because they have too much talent. The Heat are tougher. They're a tougher team, but it's hard to be a tough team and stop LeBron, Anthony Davis, Rondo. So unfortunately, I think the Lakers are going to win the NBA championship, but put that asterisk next to it. It's not going to count to me.
So if they win, does LeBron get a statue outside Staples Center?
LeBron has to win 3 or 4
The
championships.
greatest Laker of all time.
LeBron is not the greatest Laker of all time. Not even close. He couldn't even wash Kobe's shoes or Shaq's shoes.
I mean, greatest Laker of all time. That's what it comes down to.
It is not. LeBron's looking. The clips I see, because I'm starting to play FanDuel, so I have to pay attention. And he looks old. His age caught up in this bubble. He looks old. He looks tired.
He doesn't look like either of those things.
He does. Watch him,
dude. I've watched the games. He's still a physical freak of nature, and the fact that like I was watching the game the other night. I think it was their third win. I was watching, and LeBron went up for just this monstrous dunk, and then came down on his leg like 9 times out of 10. That's gonna send someone to the ER. And he just like folds over himself, pops right back up, and runs to the other end. And I'm watching it with my girlfriend. She's like, "How did he not get hurt?" And I was like, "He never has. He's a freak of nature. Like that dude is so just physically stronger and more well built than 90% of the NBA." And I think above anything else, that's the most impressive thing. Like you've seen greats in the NBA come and go, but their bodies wear down over time. And he's what, 35 now? 36. But that's the thing. Like to me, he still looks every bit of what I saw from him in Miami or when he was in Cleveland.
We
Like,
are looking at two different things.
okay, well, you hate him with a passion and have forever, so you can say what you want to say. Um, can I talk about the fact that LeBron's going to blow a 3-1 lead? What he's famous for, his most famous finals moment of all time, coming back from a 3-1 deficit, and he's about to blow a 3-1 lead.
If he blows it and the Heat win the championship, I am going to party. But I also feel like they will blame Anthony Davis because he kind of disappeared. Those first two games, he looked like the finals MVP. Then all of a sudden, he was scoring 19 points or whatever, and
Well,
that puts more.
he's got a heel.
But
Like,
see, that puts more pressure on LeBron.
One, and you have a bruised heel. Can you imagine what it feels like to play on that?
But you're an NBA player who's one of the best in the world. You need to. Kobe tore his Achilles and walked out there to shoot the free throw, and then walked off the court and said, "Do not carry me off the court." LeBron had a cramp because the Spurs turned the heat on, and he had to be carried off the freaking court. So that's where I think NBA players are soft. You watch Kobe tear an Achilles and walk out there to shoot it. You watch even NFL players break their finger. Kobe broke his finger. You watch NFL players break. Brett Favre broke his ankle and went out there and threw footballs off of it. Like, come on, like LeBron and Anthony Davis are soft, but they're so talented. That's what makes up for it. I'm not going to deny LeBron isn't talented and is very, 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 very good. But I won't be surprised if the Heat win tonight. But what scares me is that Jimmy Butler only sat on the bench for like 45 seconds.
But Jimmy Butler's done that his whole career. Like starting with Thibodeau, he was like, "Yeah, I'll just play the entire game." And I think he's kind of built to do that, kind of the same way LeBron is. On a slightly different note, because I don't want to get too far into NBA stuff, did you see the video of Michael Jordan's basketball camp with all those little kids, and Chris Paul bet him that he had to go like around the arc and make shots, and if he missed one, he had to buy the whole camp shoes? And Jordan just cold-blooded hit every shot.
Yeah, because
and walked off.
Michael Jordan still has his jump shot after all these years.
In my heart of hearts, I want like part of Michael Jordan to be like, I want to give these kids shoes, but then the crazy competitive like FU side of Michael Jordan came out and he's like, I can't lose this bet.
You can't look like an idiot.
Yeah. The same part that like, who was the Hornets draft pick that he just challenged a one-on-one when he was 50 years old and beat him one-on-one? Remember that?
Yeah, I don't remember who it was though.
He basically ended that dude's career. Just like
never saw him again.
Yeah.
All right, enough NBA. I think the Lakers win. I just don't know if it's going to be tonight or next time. But I feel like they're going to win the championship. If the Heat win tonight, that's all the gas. Like whatever gas you have left.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's a great player, but you can only do so much, and I think he's near the end.
He's one of the most underrated players, I think, because the Bulls, I saw how good he was, and then he was just put in situations where he wants to be the guy. And I don't know if he can be the guy, but I think he's slowly showing that he can be the guy. I loved him at the Bulls. I hated that they got rid of him, but the Bulls are a trash organization now. Like it's just
have been for a while.
It's terrible. All right.
Hey, before this is the last thing, I want to take our first official minute to have an Illinois sadness minute. Can we talk about how good Kendrick Nunn looked?
Oh, goodness.
Has looked in this whole series. And Illinois had him on their team in basketball. And now he's very close to being a above average NBA player.
And then there's Illinois just sitting there. I will say, though, that's one of my topics was, the NCAA saying, so we're going to get off the NBA thing. NCAA basketball claims are coming back in November. And I don't know how that's going to work. Because college are slowly starting to see COVID tests. Like Notre Dame's been bad. They finally got to play yesterday, which gets that in a second.
Yeah.
So what scares me with NBA did it right. I will say this: that bubble was the perfect idea, but you can do that with basketball. You can't do it with football. Um, Basketball for NCAA, I don't know how you do a bubble. I don't think you can. I know in Illinois, I don't know how we're going to do basketball in high school here in a month, let
Yeah.
alone NCAA. But it's going to start in November. Illinois, I guess, has some good recruits. So if they can play, I think they will compete in the Big Ten this year.
If Illinois doesn't get to play basketball this year, you will have to find a new co-host for this show because I will end it. Like, I've waited so long for Illinois to be good at basketball again, and then to get not only Kofi to come back, but then Io came back. I have been like, I've got sweaty palms right now talking about it. I'm so excited about Illinois basketball. And if they take that away from me, there's nothing to live for anymore. It's just
to my loyal 5 fans, I will not give up on you. I will be solo dojo on this show for my 5 listeners out there.
Yeah, they're probably like, get this dude off of here anyway. I don't care.
Probably because that St. Louis Cardinals hat. But anyway.
Yeah. The actual sweat stains are from watching the Cardinals try to pull out wins this year.
Hey, they're sitting with the Cubs right now on the couch watching. So
yeah. Okay. You want to talk some actual football stuff?
Yeah. One thing about the NFL, which NFL is crazy, more Titans are getting tested positive. So I don't know what the Titans did. People say stay away from Tennessee. I don't know what happened. They're investigating it. Apparently, they had workouts nobody knew about, or this, or that.
Dude, the craziest thing, I heard somebody talking about this the other day. Can you imagine being a professional football team and going to a random high school and practicing for a week and no one recognizing you?
Well, and then how do you get on that? How do you even go there and no one know?
Somebody wrote a check. Like, one of those players wrote a check for the school and was like, here, buy new turf. Just shut up about us being here.
Well, you know what? They should have given me some of that money. I would have opened up.
Like, could you imagine if the Chicago Bears got kicked out of Chicago for some reason and we showed up to Oakwood one day and there's just the Bears practicing on our high school field?
But like,
people would be losing their minds.
But that's why I don't know what happened. And then the Bears had a practice player test positive. So now they're contact tracing to see who that person was around. The Bears players have to get tested 3 times a day now. The Patriots had that corner test positive. They just shut down their facilities today.
Their best defensive player, Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, so Bill Belichick was not ordered to close anything, but he did it anyway. He kind of said, we have to figure this out. Cam Newton still is not practicing, nor is he playing. They have no reports on that. I don't even know if he has symptoms. I don't know what's going on with Cam Newton.
Yeah.
If he was on the Carolina Panthers, we would have known. But since he's on the Patriots, we don't know. The Chiefs had an assistant football coach test positive. I don't know if it was like an analyst assistant or whatever. I don't know if he was a main coach. It just said assistant. So they have to continue to get tested. I know they keep moving games. So we have a game on Tuesday. There might be an NFL game on Tuesday, which is going to be awesome. 2 on Monday, 1 on Tuesday. Then they're talking about moving one of the games to Saturday. So you would have, I can't remember who was going to play, but you have an NFL game on Saturday, and then Georgia, Alabama right after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an NFL game too. So you've got, so it's just crazy. So I don't know. So, and then our Bears beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they shouldn't have. Was it 4th down, Tom Brady?
It's funnier because his helmet's so comically large.
His helmet's large, and then it's Tom Brady. How long have you been in the NFL, Tom Brady? I knew what down it was.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone's made that mistake at one point in their life.
I mean, I would expect that from Mitchell Trubisky, not Tom Brady.
Yeah. It's a rough look, especially if you're the GOAT, which he is. But, man, it felt good as a Bears fan. Like,
it did. It was a rough game, but they're the luckiest 4-1 team I've ever seen.
Can I take a second to make myself sound really stupid, which I do a lot?
I already have, so it's your turn.
I love analytics, and I get on like Pro Football Focus a lot and look at their like individual player rankings, just because I think they're interesting and I like that they spend so much time to individually grade out their plays. And they said Khalil Mack had his worst game of like the last 3 years during that game. And I know he like lost contain a couple times, and yeah, he had a pretty rough penalty there where he threw Brady to the ground and probably shouldn't have. But Khalil Mack kind of single-handedly holds that defense together. So you cannot tell me that his PFF grade should be anything under like an 80.
Right, like the thing with Khalil Mack, and people need to realize this, is like he came to Chicago that first year and just dominated. And now they're double teaming him and this and that. He does things that are on the stats, if that makes sense. Like he's going to take on the double teams. He's going to try to be a leader. Like he's trying to get him rah. And then when he comes to the sideline, he's just like, we're not done yet. And like,
yeah,
I don't want to say he's Kobe Bryant, but that's kind of what you see. Like, I don't know.
Well,
when he's on the side, he keeps them together. He's like, we're not going to cheer and do this. And he's like, we have a job, and that's what he's trying to do.
And it's fun to watch because I was like those players that have that like I'm gonna murder you attitude, and watching him like on all fours staring Brady in the face after he sacked him, like it gave me chills because it's just fun to watch those guys who are crazy. Like I call it Jordan crazy. He's got that weird competitive gene that like he's just a freak.
Yeah, he just does things that aren't on the stats and takes on the double teams. They go away from him. They will go make plays away from him. But last year, before Akeem Hicks was hurt, he was that other guy so they could do more. This year, I don't see it as much from Akeem Hicks, but I think he's slowly going to find it again.
Yeah, and Akeem Hicks is hurt right now.
Yeah,
I think he's like a pretty serious arm injury or something like that.
Yeah, last year he was out for half the rest of the year after halfway through the year.
You know the crazy thing though, like we do need to keep moving, but you know what do you do if you have a all-world pass rusher on one side of the ball? You throw screens and slants in their direction, right?
You throw screens, you read them, so you try not to even block them sometimes.
Yeah,
and when
you don't see that happen with Khalil Mack at all.
No,
they just physically run away from him.
They'll run away from him. They'll double team him. They'll line up in a formation and then shift to make sure he's away from what they want to do. And then sometimes they will run at him just to test him, to make him tired. And I think that's what I was going to say at the Bears defensive line. Defensive line, you have to be very, very conditioned. So without having all the training camps, I think you're going to see defensive lines get better as the year goes on. That's going to happen with the Bears. All right,
one thing, and then we're done. I swear. I think you do have to realize the importance of having, like, if you're going to run a 3-4 defense, you absolutely need a 340-pound, huge dude and nose tackle. And the Bears don't have that because Eddie Goldman opted out this year. And you can see it. Like, people just gash them for yards up the middle. And I don't know if they'll be able to fix that because I don't think there's that many guys on the trade market, or if the Bears even have the stuff to trade for one, you know. So we'll see as people keep taking advantage of that.
All right, guys, we're going to get to our college football games. There's some we may talk longer than others, but some we're going to speed through. We just wanted to discuss them.
I have random college football topics that I need to talk about.
All right, well.
Okay. College OT is stupid. It's just dumb. Like, I don't like the NFL system, but just put an extra quarter on there. Like, I much rather would have seen that Texas OU game as a full quarter instead of whatever, like, bastardized version of football that was. I don't know about you.
Hold on, guys. I'm messing with my banners. I don't know. I like the college football one just because it gives each team the opportunity to score, and it's different than the NFL. I think they do that because they don't want to. I don't think TV deals want to pay them that much more. The longer it goes on, the more they do they have to pay them. I don't know how that works. I understand if you could do the NFL and have a whole another quarter and maybe like each team gets the opportunity to score, but that's just the same thing as going on the 25 and going in. To me, that's the same thing. I don't know. It's hard to say because there's overtimes that just last that one overtime and it ends, and we're all like, "Oh, okay, we got an extra 3 minutes of football." Then there's ones like yesterday or like a couple years ago with LSU and Texas A&M that went into 7 overtimes. That's where it gets a little crazy. I think maybe there has to be a rule in place where after the third overtime, maybe it's a tie. Maybe you have to start doing ties. I don't know. I don't think college football wants to do that because of getting to the college football playoff and all the voting and all that.
But they did for years. Like there was a bunch of ties in the record books.
Yeah, but I think the more you got into the BCS national championship stuff and all the money they were making, they were like, we cannot afford to have a tie.
Yeah.
And because could you imagine all those years ago with Boise State, if a team had a tie?
Well, think about like if you're a fan of OU or Texas, how unsatisfying it would be to have ended that game in a tie.
Right, and that's the other thing. So that's why I don't know if you even touch the overtime. Maybe make it a quarter. Maybe move it back to the 50 instead of the 25 and say you have to actually get to a field goal range. Because on the 25, you're already there. Yeah. So maybe they move it back. I don't know.
I don't know. The other thing I had with college football, there are a lot of targeting penalties.
That's really tough, especially with COVID, because I know Lane Kiffin talked after the game. They asked him, how is it the SEC is scoring a lot of points this year, all of a sudden. And he said he thinks it's due to COVID because you didn't have all the spray ball and stuff. It's easy to install an offense on Zoom. I think it's hard to do a solid defense on Zoom because you have to be able to see everything. Offense, you can tag things and shift and this and that. Defense, it's like you have to know it all. You couldn't tackle for a while at Navy that first week. They said straight up, we did not really tackle because of COVID. You're seeing some bad tackling, and now you're seeing these kids have bad form. Now, some they can't control. Some of it I don't understand.
It's not even young players. It's like all SEC, all American dudes missing tackles like in the tackle box. Like stuff you don't normally see, especially in the SEC. Like it's very clear. Defenses learn by reacting to things. And you're right. I think offense you can install because it's all pretty much pre-read. Like snap read. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. There's also been a lot of like illegal block in the back. Like what was it? I think Ole Miss had a penalty where their receiver kind of came down from the slot and down blocked a linebacker. And it was like, I'm going to put my shoulder into you a little bit. And they threw a flag on it. And I get the like making the game safer, and that's what you're doing with that rule. But at a certain point, like now we've gone too far because you just can't. Like the guy was just outside of the tackle box. Like that's just a normal play. That's a football play, and he didn't hit you. He didn't like throw the guy's head back because he hit him so hard. It's like a 160-pound receiver trying to block a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Like at a certain point, you're just making it harder on yourself to make watchable football.
Right, but it's all about the money. It's all about, and it's safe. They're trying to make it safe.
Yeah,
they're trying to make the money, and I don't want to say they don't care about the kids because it is. I heard a coach say this before. It's a meat market. Like these kids are just going through. But it's for the safety of the kids. And then I also think it's the TV ratings. It's the money. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
It's about the money. That's what you're seeing. Coaches get paid $8 million, $9 million, $10 million a year. That pays for the school's computer labs and the libraries and the buildings, which people don't want to admit. Like Rutgers, teachers trying to sue the university. And it's like you realize, even though Rutgers sucks at football, you realize that Big Ten contract pays for your computer lab, your desk, and they don't want to realize that. And
in reality, like having gone through it, you know how you really get those teachers to understand? You take their GAs away.
Mhm.
Like, hey, you don't want football to happen? Well, now that GA that you have grade all of your papers and run your classroom for all those days you don't want to be in class, yeah, now they're gone. Sorry.
Yeah, like because there's an athletic budget, and then there's an overall budget. Those sports budgets go into the whole school. Now, obviously, sports gets taken care of first. That's why Alabama's of the world and Ohio State's have top-notch weight rooms stuff.
Mhm.
Then it trickles down to the rest. Those boosters that give them money, if they don't have a good football team, you ain't getting any money.
Yeah.
Um, and there's only certain schools that can get money. Like U of I think someone's had a good booster, but they haven't done anything with it. And I think now you're seeing women try to do something with it.
Well, yeah, they built like have you seen their football operation now? It's insane.
Yeah, they're trying to.
Anything I've ever seen at the University of Illinois.
Yeah, they're trying to catch up with everybody. It's about time they do that.
Liddyville.
Yeah,
It's still a thing. That guy gone.
Well, and then I was gonna say the Big Ten football comes back October 24th.
Yeah, I'm so ready. I want to see 3 yards in a cloud of dust and then a punt so bad. Like all this competent football is kind of making me sad. I need to see Lovie Smith with his big beard standing there like, oh, why can't we move the ball?
I don't know. I think Big Ten's going to start off rough. It's going to be rough. Besides Ohio State, I think they're the only one. And Illinois has to play Wisconsin, but without fans, so there's not going to be that jump around thing at Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that's a revenge game for Wisconsin this time.
Yes,
there's a chance you get run off the field.
Yeah, I'm a little scared for that.
Yeah. Okay, you ready to start going through these games?
Yeah. So, guys, the banners. I'm gotta go. So whoever comes up, that's what we're gonna do. What we want to go through real quick. I'm gonna pick this one first. LSU and Missouri. So, Missouri with the big upset, 45-41. They stopped LSU 4 times on the goal line for them to win the game. And last week I talked a lot of crap. I said Texas A&M and Missouri need to go. They need to go back to the Big 12 or join the Big 10. I said Missouri can go join the Big 10, which is fine with me. Their travel wouldn't be too bad. I said Texas A&M goes back to the Big 12. And we'll get to Texas A&M in a minute. I think they heard me. Somewhere, they said this jackass from the cornfields with this podcast show said something about us. We're going to go win. So just real quick, Mississippi State, beats LSU first week. LSU's defending national champ. I jumped on the Mississippi State bandwagon, but I kind of came back down to earth last week. So now is LSU just that? It's not, Ed's losing his mind right now. Ed's not a bad coach. He did not forget how to coach overnight. Like, he's a good coach. Is LSU just that bad?
I think, one, Bo Pelini, probably not a great coach. I think we've known that for a little bit, but he's one of those guys that like has a name and people know Bo Pelini. So they're like, oh yeah, defense won't miss a beat. New coaching staff, you lost almost your entire defense minus Stingley. You're like all American corner. It'll be fine. Roll it back, another national championship. And I think what we were talking about earlier, when you don't have live practices to get these new guys on the field, and obviously they're probably running, it looked like close to the same defense they ran last year, but then you're not getting the reps with these guys. You're going to look bad, and they look really bad. I think there's still a lot of talent there, but I think everyone's out for them this year, which they were last year, but it's going to be a rough year for LSU. I think they'll rebound and eventually be as good as they were last year again, but the rest of their year is probably gone.
I think so. People don't realize they lost like their entire staff, offense, defense coordinators, all that left. He had to rebuild it, and the best person to do that is Nick Saban. So, I mean,
I was going to say, what happens to Bama every 2 years happened to Ed Orgeron for the first time.
Right, and so he's got to figure that out. So I mean, it does. Some of it falls back on him, but he didn't forget how to coach overnight. Um, and I mean, if you really look at it, like the LSU's quarterback threw for 430 yards and 4 touchdowns. So realistically, he's good. They just have no run game, but then their defense is kind of what is killing them. They give up 406 passing yards to Missouri, and that kid had 4 touchdowns. Then rushing, they allowed a rusher to have 119 yards of rushing, and it's Missouri.
Yeah.
And so LSU's defense, I think, is what's killing them. LSU can score points. I don't think that's the issue, because they're running the same offense they did last year, so they're able to adapt and do what they did. But if you get a shootout, their defense isn't going to step up. So I think they're not bad. Like if you put them in the Big Ten, they'd be 2-1 right now or something, or the Pac-12. But since you're in the SEC and you're playing all SEC schedule, I think this is your easiest game right here, Missouri, and you lost.
Yeah.
Because either Mississippi State or Missouri was going to be your game where you win, and now you're not. So I feel like they are going to get thumped by Alabama later on, like thumped. So
that being said, I love Ed Orgeron. I think he's low-key one of the best coaches in the NCAA, as low-key as you can be, having just won a national championship. But I think he will find a way to get them to play better. I just think it's going to take 6 games for them to start to play.
And you know what's crazy is Missouri had 3 turnovers.
Yeah. So, and for them to not – you're going to force 3 turnovers and not win that game. You're right. Ed Orgeron's probably not sleeping at all, thinking about that, because he's a defensive guy. Former D lineman, former D line coach, former defensive coordinator. Like, that dude is probably pulling out his hair thinking about it.
Yeah, but if I saw him running on a jog right now, I'd move away because he's mad. So we'll see if LSU turns it around. Next one we said was Florida State, Notre Dame. Florida State they were winning at the end of the first quarter, 17-14. Now Notre Dame hasn't played in like 2 weeks because they've had like 20 positive tests here, 15 positive tests there, because they just go out and party, I guess. I don't know how they're getting this. Goes back to their head coach. I'm not a big fan of him. Does he not have
Jesus, Steve? Touchdown Jesus protects them from COVID-19. Everyone knows that.
I'm just saying, like, their head coach, does he just not have control of it for those COVID tests? I don't know. You see that, and you have like Nick Saban and all them who have control. So
yeah.
I just
don't. You see Nick Saban wearing one of those masks that's like mesh, like you can see his mouth moving in the mask.
So we'll get to Alabama in a second. I have a comment on Nick Saban that I was sitting there. I don't know if I tweeted it. I should have, but we'll get to Nick Saban.
Okay. All right.
But then Notre Dame woke back up and won 42-26. Florida State is terrible. They are just god-awful, but they gave Notre Dame a run for the money. So is it Florida State's going to figure it out and Notre Dame's just not that good? Or is it that Notre Dame decided to get the rust off because it's been 2 weeks?
I want Notre Dame. Did they play Clemson this year?
They do.
They do.
Now, at the beginning, I was on a podcast before, and I said the game that's going to Clemson's got to watch out for is Notre Dame. And when I watched Notre Dame against Duke, and even the next game, I said, okay, if Notre Dame and Book can get their quarterback run game going, they're not going to beat Clemson, but I think it'd be close. But now seeing Notre Dame and watching Clemson last night, I don't say that anymore. But yeah, they play Clemson. I don't remember when, but later on.
Yeah. I think the one thing that, Notre Dame's going to run through the ACC. They're probably not going to have another close game. I think Notre Dame and Miami are probably close to the same talent level between teams. The one thing Notre Dame has and has consistently every year is a really good offensive line. And I think that's one thing that will at least make them competitive against Clemson. Like, if there aren't a lot of teams that will make that game interesting, But I think if you can control the line of scrimmage and run the ball effectively, which with Notre Dame, who knows, like they'll find a way to screw it up. But I want to see that game really bad because I think Clemson will win, but I do think I hate myself for saying this. Notre Dame will make it competitive just because of the style of football that they play.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got some huge dudes. And Clemson has a young defensive line. They lost some defensive players. But the thing that's going to hurt Notre Dame is if they continue to get these weeks off. If Notre Dame didn't have the 2 weeks off, I would say the same thing. After watching Clemson last night, I don't know. Clemson's got some speed. They got some SEC looking players. But yeah, I think the only team you're going to see be competitive against Clemson is Notre Dame, and it's always like that. I think when Notre Dame, I think they played 2018 maybe, 17 or 18, the rain game where it just rained the whole time. Notre Dame kept it competitive. It was a close game, but that kind of defined Clemson too. They were like, that was when they took a step forward and said, we're going to go beat Alabama in the national championship. So I think Notre Dame will be fine. Florida State's awful. Notre Dame just had to get the rust off.
Yeah, and having to take 2 weeks off like right after you started your season, it'd be hard on anybody. So they can be forgiven for looking kind of bad against Florida State.
Yeah, I give them a pass. But if they don't figure it out soon, then Clemson's going to blow the doors off of them. But they got some big boys. They got some huge offensive linemen. Huge. And it's their defense. Their defense is very base. Like they disguise it a little bit, but it's base. And their defense reminds me of the Big 12 defense where they want to bend a little bit and not break. It's not as bad as a Big 12 defense, but it's – and we'll get to Oklahoma and them here in a minute. I love Oklahoma's defense coordinator. He was Mike Leach's defense coordinator at Washington State when Luke Falk was there. When Washington State was good, Grinch, he had a good defense at Washington State. But I think the Oklahoma curse has kind of taken over him a little bit. I mean, they were there. The defense was there until 6 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, let's keep going, because if we're going to talk OU, we got to get to that game.
All right, I'm just going Mike Leach. We'll get through this literally in like 3 minutes. I said all week that I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. I thought Kentucky was going to run on the ball over the place. I thought Mike Leach was going to throw it all over the place. Or let me rephrase that, Costello. And people now are jumping off the Mike Leach bandwagon. And I don't think they should. It's the third game. As easy as the air raid is, a Costello who was at Stanford, who runs a pro-style 3-page offensive call play sheet, down to Mike Leach, who has a half of a piece of paper, and trying to figure out the reads is difficult. I don't care how old you are. The only one that came in and figured out right away is Minshew, and he's doing well in the NFL, so he's just a rare breed. It took Luke Falk even a while. It took what's his name, Graham at Texas Tech all those years ago. It took him a couple of years. They're jumping off the bandwagon, and I don't think they should. If you give Mike Leach in 3 years and he gets those wide receiver recruits, they're going to be fine. And Kentucky's not bad. I don't think people are figuring that out yet. Kentucky's not a bad team. What's embarrassing is that they don't get a touchdown. I think that's the most embarrassing thing for Mississippi State.
I think it's another rough loss for Mike Leach. And I never expect to see a Mike Leach coach team lose in a lower scoring game. It feels weird, right?
And then, again, I'm not blaming Costello, but he had 4 interceptions.
Yeah. But then again, Kentucky, again, you said it, is better than people think.
They are. They're tough.
It's good team, bad brand, is what.
Right. If you took that
Kentucky football,
right, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon because this happened at Washington State. This happened. It happened. The only time he went to a bowl game his first year was Texas Tech. That's because you're in the Big 12. And it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to go there and probably go to a bowl game unless you're, I don't even know. Big 12 is awful. So, guys, don't jump off the bandwagon yet with Mike Leach. He'll be just fine. That's what he does. He turns around programs. But it was a homecoming for Mike Leach. He was offensive coordinator at Kentucky. That was his first, he and Hal Mummy's first SEC job. And so they showed a video of him walking out there and looking around. And I talked about this on a podcast. If he was at Washington State this year still, and Stoops gets fired at Kentucky, Mike Leach would have taken that job. I think he kind of wants to go back to Kentucky, but I don't know if it'll happen now because he doesn't leave. People are like, oh, he's not going to stay at Mississippi State very long. He was at Texas Tech for 10 years. He got fired. If it wasn't for them firing him, he still might be there. Who knows? I have no idea.
And they didn't really fire him because he wasn't competitive. They fired him because he stuck a kid in a closet.
Which never happened because Craig James is a piece of
I know, but that's why they fired him.
That's what I mean. Like, if that whole thing never happened, he still might be there. I have no idea.
I think he will be there.
And then Washington State, he was there for a year, so he's going to stick around. If that Kentucky job opens up this year, he ain't leaving. But don't jump off the bandwagon. He'll be just fine. He'll be just fine. All right, then we'll hop on the big old scoring game. I just clicked a random banner, guys, so I'm just clicking. Alabama versus Ole Miss. It was one for the record books. Alabama won 63-48. I want to say there was like 1,200 yards of offense, 1,300 yards of offense combined. Then this morning, I read that Nick Saban said it kind of seemed like they had our defensive signals because every play call that they had beat their defensive play call. And so now Nick Saban's throwing jabs at Lane Kiffin, kind of saying, I think you guys had our defensive signals, which is confusing because Lane Kiffin left in, 2016, 17.
Yeah. If you haven't changed your defensive signals since, I think he left in, was he at FAU for 1 or 2 years?
He was there for 3 years.
Okay, so if you haven't changed your defensive signals in 3 years, that's on you at that point.
Right, well, and I watched the game. I tried to pay attention. Ole Miss played very tough. So don't take that away from a Lane Kiffin team. And it was a lot of big plays. Like, I remember it was like 3rd and 15 or 20 for Ole Miss. And I'm like, Alabama's going to stop them. We're going to stop the scoring. And they got like 30 yards. And I'm like, that's on you for giving up. I don't care if they know your defensive signals. Like, you gave up a big play.
Yeah. Well, and you look like those plays were so perfectly tailored for what Alabama does. Like, in my mind, and this could be wrong, but like in my mind, Alabama safeties are like run support safeties for the most part. Like, their free safeties are usually pretty fast, but he ran that cross route with his tight end that busted for like a 60-yard touchdown. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one, that ball was perfectly thrown. If it would have been a little bit lower behind, it probably gets picked off. But you can tell, like, Lane Kiffin did not forget what Bama likes to do on defense.
Right. And that's why
it was jarring to see, like, Bama's defense look lost. Because there are parts of that game, they look lost.
Yeah, again, I don't care if you're Nick Saban. It goes back to that time preparation. Now, Alabama's been practicing. Like, they've gone out there. They're pretty safe about it. But it comes down to defense is harder to install and go through things than it is on offense. Maybe they had your defensive signals, but I think it's also that Lane Kiffin but you don't have the same defensive coordinators either at this point. And so Lane Kiffin just kind of knows what they're going to do before they do it. Or like, and if people watch that game, there was times they went up tempo, but times they did checks at the line. So was it that Lane Kiffin he and his offensive coordinator, they just called a better game than they called on defense? But you know what? Even Ole Miss has always been Nick Saban's thorn, them and Auburn. No matter Ole Miss could be 2-8 when they play Alabama, and they could beat Alabama. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to take anything away from the Ole Miss kids. There were sometimes they ran zone reads, and they blew Alabama's defensive line back. I saw there was a zone, and it looked like a wall. It literally was a wall. It was that 30-yard run touchdown, and it was just a wall. And that's when Nick Saban. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Did anybody else see Nick Saban wearing a hat the first half coaching?
I didn't even notice that.
He was wearing a hat. And I said, that has never happened in the history of Nick Saban.
Yeah. I feel like Nick Saban would throw a visor on before he wore a hat.
Oh, he had those gray hats they're wearing on the sideline, those mesh ones that are really probably like $50. He had one of those on. And then after the second half, he took it off. And I'm like, oh, he's mad. He's mad.
Real now.
No, and then he had the mask where you could see him yelling. But he kept his cool. There was times he got mad, but he kind of kept his cool. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah. Okay. Those masks are the dumbest thing on earth. And the NCAA should step in and say, like, hey, like they do in the NFL where they fine people for not wearing their masks. Like some of these school administrators need to step in because, I mean, we'll talk about this in Tennessee, Georgia, but go look up Tennessee's head coach wearing his mask.
I was going to get to that.
We'll talk about it here in a little bit, but like that see-through mask doesn't do anything. You're taking the screen from like a screened-in porch and putting it on your face. Like,
well, so in the NFL, they have a commissioner and all that can do that stuff. Here's where the NCAA is kind of weird. This is where I get mad. They have a president who you would think would do all this stuff. He didn't want to step in and make decisions on how they were going to go about the season. He left it up to the conferences. And that's why you saw the Big Ten and Pac-12 say we're going to wait and not play. They need a commissioner. Like they have a president, but he doesn't act like it. And he just wants the money. I hate him. I can't stand him. You know, they need a commissioner. If they had like a commissioner, I think you could start seeing fines. I don't know if athletic directors and stuff can fine their head coaches for that stuff. Oh, yeah, I have no idea. Absolutely. I have no idea.
Like they earn their paychecks. Just
I don't know how it works, but I think the NCAA needs they need to redo it to where the president steps in and makes these decisions, or they need a commissioner. Like, okay, let's hire a commissioner and get rid of the president thing. Hire a commissioner, and they set the rulings. They meet with the Big Ten athletic directors, or I mean the conference athletic directors. Say this is how we're going to do things. This is how it works. But yeah, I will say this though, Mike Leach had the same mask on, so on camera it looks like it's a good mask. But I understand those are the masks that don't work as well. They look cool. I was kind of like, oh, I want that one. But then, like when you saw it up close, it was like, is that a fishing net? Like,
yeah, like it annoys me. Like I work in healthcare, and that. I don't know. I get it. Like you need to be able to yell and say things, but you can yell through a surgical mask. I do it every day at work. Like there's no reason to have something like that going on, especially when we're seeing more and more like this can affect, if you get COVID-19, it can affect your cardiac muscles, especially in heavier set, really big athletes.
Well, then like Nick Saban, who is in his 60s, but he's pretty healthy, but like he's still in his, but he's in his 60s though. So, yeah. I mean,
I don't think Nick Saban understands anything but football.
Nick Saban doesn't know anything about anything. No, he's one of my favorite coaches. I need to shut up.
But that's just it. It's like Nick Saban lives for one thing, and it's football. And he's not going to let anything else step in the way. Like he probably saw that mask and was like, oh, I can yell through that. Perfect. You know, I do want to say a couple things like about this game, the play of this game. I think anytime you see a shootout game like this, which we saw a couple of them this week, it was one of those who flinches first games. And unfortunately, Ole Miss flinched. There were like three things I noticed that were weird that Lane Kiffin did here. One was putting your backup quarterback in on the goal line I know that play worked, but what are you doing? Your quarterback's been efficient all game. Like, you're getting too cute now. Just put the guy in there and let him do his thing, you know? Hey, do you wanna silence your phone? Have a
Whose
little
show is this?
here.
I'm trying to get people to watch this thing. Nobody's watching it. I could care less, but I'm trying to get it out there. I'm busy.
Okay, alright,
I'm my financial advisor. I'm the host. I'm the PR. I'm the marketing.
Okay, alright.
And that's why it's failing. I am
Okay.
Jerry Jones of the sidelines with Coach Steve. That's
The other thing I noticed is, like, I really feel bad for the center for Ole Miss that messed up
oh
snap. Like, that dude, you can tell, like, his heart and soul was in it, and he had a bad game. Like, he had, what, 3 bad snaps
now
in that game?
what did it was if you're a spread team and a shotgun team, don't go under center. That center
Yeah.
don't do it. And that's kind of what did it. It was raining. Now you've been doing the shotgun thing all day. Now you're going to ask this kid, go under center and do that at an up-tempo pace. So
Yeah.
I wanted to go. If I was, I got mad. I don't know if the O-line coach went up and talked to that kid. I didn't see it on camera. I'm sure he did. That would have been the first thing me as an O-line coach I would have done. I would have ran up to him and been like, "That's not your fault. Like, get over it. Like, we move on." And
Yeah.
I was rooting for Alabama because I'm a Nick Saban fan. But at the end of the day, it was a good game offensively. But that kid, I was like, if that O-line coach didn't go up to him, I'm going to punch him in the face because coaching kids that have made mistakes like that, especially the school I was at last year with lower income, like you need to run up to them and tell them like it's okay and I'm sure he thinks that he lost the game for them, which is not true.
Not at all.
Because you said it perfect. They flinched. They flinched first. They had to kick that one field goal. Once they kicked the one field goal, I said if Alabama scores, which they were going to, I said if they score again, it's done. Like you're not going to win.
And in that kind of game, one stupid penalty to put you behind down in distance, you're done. And that's kind of what happened there with that field goal. Like you get pushed back. I don't even remember I don't even think it was a penalty. I just think it was a couple plays that didn't run right. So now you're off schedule, which your head coach, Lane Kiffin, he can find a way out of it. But I felt for that kid so much because, like, I felt that having made some dumb decisions, like playing sports, that was like it hit real close to home. And I hope that kid realizes that he's not the reason they lost that game.
No, he's not the reason. It's a team thing. And, I'm trying to look up the stats here. I mean, Alabama had 723 total yards of offense, and then Ole Miss had 647 total yards of offense. So, I mean, you were doing your job on offense. And it's Alabama. I mean, but I will say this: Ole Miss was 4 for 4 on fourth downs, which is huge. Alabama's running back, that Harris, he looks like Derrick Henry when he played for Alabama. That kid is a man, and my goodness gracious,
you see him play. He plays like every down.
Yeah, he never comes out,
which is weird because I'm used to seeing Bama backs like trickle in and trickle out. It's like running back by committee. But Najee Harris should probably be in contention for the Heisman because he's the thing that makes that whole offense run.
Right now, I don't know if ESPN has updated everything yet, but it says he only has 347 yards right now. He averages 6.7 yards. He only has carried the ball 52 times. He already has 10 touchdowns. But he had 206 yards last night. And I think that's kind of this game kind of what starts it for them. I never thought I'd say this. Alabama's offense is so much better than their defense right now. I thought I would never say that.
But it is.
They have a very good offense with a quarterback that is not big time, which is what's great about Alabama. The only time they've had big time was Hurst and Tua. after that, they get these quarterbacks they develop, and this quarterback played in the wing T in high school.
Yeah, but the dude has a cannon.
Yes, and he's accurate.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think he's kind of perfectly built to be a quarterback for Alabama. Like he just seems like calm under pressure, comfortable in a pro style offense. Like it's the perfect match for them. And they have so much talent at receiver. Like there are times with Tua that I thought he worried more about running than putting the ball where it needed to be. And Mac Jones seems much more interested in like, I'm going to get this ball to my playmakers, which is cool to see because there's so much talent there.
Yeah, he was 28 of 32, which is though that you're going to win the game if the quarterback does that.
Yeah,
417 yards, 2 touchdowns. Harris had 5 of the touchdowns rushing. I mean, and then that Smith kid, they have some good receivers. That Smith kid had 1 touchdown for 164 yards. So I mean, Alabama's offense is just. I don't think Nick Saban wants his defense to be their defense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's why he didn't get as mad because he knew they were going to score. And this is one of their best offenses they've had, I think, since Lane Kiffin left. So they're Sarkisian, it's like is reborn calling plays. After the Atlanta Falcons debacle, he was the OC.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on.
Yep.
Cool thing, guys, about this StreamYard, I can see how long we're 56 minutes. So we're gonna go on. We'll go through this real quick. Just Miami and Clemson. I didn't put verses in there. Don't judge me. Clemson just is Clemson. It was a close game. It was 21-10 at halftime. I watched that game. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought Miami was going to be more competitive. Clemson, because Clemson didn't play last week, so I thought, okay, they had that week off. They're going to be a little rusty. Clemson has got some SEC-looking dudes. They're fast. They made some mistakes in the first half. And then they just kind of said, we're Clemson. We're going to beat them 42-17. The U chain could be thrown in the garbage. The U ain't there yet. They're going to be there in a couple of years, but they're not there yet. It's Clemson.
I like the way Miami plays. I think you're right. They just don't have the horses yet to compete with Clemson. They just don't. And their defense, specifically their D-line, it became very evident they were not big enough or fast enough to deal with what Clemson's bringing to the table.
No, that's what the first half I was like, oh, Miami's competitive, but then Clemson doesn't look tired yet. And then Miami looked tired, and then Clemson said, oh, we're not tired. Their running back, when they run a zone, their running back is so freaking fast. He gets 5 yards before someone touches him.
Yeah, and Etienne.
Yeah.
I think it's weird that I've got to give Miami some credit. I'm stumbling through my words because I'm trying to figure out how to word this and be as nice as possible. Like, Miami deserves a little bit of credit because they lost 2 of their best defensive players pretty much right off the bat. And to still maintain and be, like, competitive in that game at Clemson, like, it'd stay competitive for most of the game, kind of. Like, that's impressive to me, and it showed a little heart for them to be able to go out there and do that. Like, they're playing, I think, 2 true freshmen that had to come in, like, during the game. Like, you're not going to win that game at that point because you're not going to stop Clemson. I do want to say we talked about this earlier. I sent you a text. I don't know what exactly Clemson's defense is, what exactly they run. It looks like a 3-4 hybrid with a 3-3 stack
thing. They jump. Their defensive coordinator was the defensive coordinator in Oklahoma when they were winning a lot a few years ago. They originally do like a 4-3, 4-2-5, but when they started recruiting like Alabama, you're starting to see them. Depends on who they play. And so when you said that, I was like, wait, I think they run a 4-2-5, but I know they sometimes will jump into an odd man front. And like when they do, it is a 3-4, but then sometimes they'll jump into that 3 depending on who they're playing and what the strength is. So like Alabama, when they would play Alabama, they run the ball. So they want to run an either man front to try to control the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, I don't think they were too worried about them running the football. They want to contain them.
They were running like 2-man fronts.
Yeah, so I think for them, especially because I will say it's a COVID year. So I talked to a coach the other day, Coach Ron Mackey. Shout out to him if he ever watches this. He said for high school, he goes, "This is the perfect time to get weird. If there's something you've always wanted to do, get weird." Clemson, they're not going to get fired. They're not going to lose their job. So if they want to do random things, they can. There's certain schools out there that cannot. Like Kentucky's got to stay what they do. If not, Stoops is going to get fired.
Yeah.
Clemson can do whatever they want. Alabama can do whatever they want. Old Miss can do whatever they want. I think that's how they were able to do what they did. I think Lane Kiffin said, "Screw it, it's COVID year. It's Alabama. We're going to do what we want or do things." But yeah, you're right. Clemson will jump into like a 3-4-3-3. They do both. And
that's what I was telling you. They're just fun to watch because they are so multiple. Like I can watch an entire Clemson game, and most of the time they're blowouts. But at that point, I start watching the defense because it's just so like I feel like I don't see the same formation from them more than once or twice a game.
Well, their defense coordinator is great, and he's going to be a head coach here one day. He's been a defense coordinator for 15 years. I don't know.
Who is it? Because they have like these late formation shifts that like I saw Miami multiple times get down and like get ready for the play, and you see Clemson. It looked like a planned shift. It's like, hey, we're going to give you this look, and then 3 seconds pre-snap, we're going to change the way this defensive front looks.
Brent Venables. I knew his name. I just had to say it right.
I knew that. Yeah. Like, that is so cool to see, and especially seeing that in a year where, like we said, you're not getting all the practice time. To see those, like, late shifts like that, especially in college, it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's because they have the dudes. Like, he was the defense coordinator in Oklahoma when they had Sam Bradford and stuff, and they were going to the national championship with Stoops. And they had a good defense back then, too, for a Big 12. But he has the dudes to do it, and he's crazy. He has his get-back guy. I would love to have that job. You pay me $80,000 a year, I'll be somebody's get-back guy.
You think they make $80,000 a year? You know who the get-back guy is, right? It's the strength and conditioning coach, like GA.
Depends on where you're at. Like, I know in Alabama, theirs didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what? Pay me $50,000 then. I don't care. Pay me something, and I'll be your get-back guy.
Yeah. That would be so much fun. It depends on the coach. Like, I would not want to be Nick Saban's get-back guy.
I would. I'm bigger than him. Now, if Ed was younger and he was crazy, no way.
Absolutely not. Ed Orgeron would murder somebody, I think. I don't know. He's a nice guy, though. Like, all intents and purposes, I think Ed Orgeron's like a genuinely nice person.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it was back when he was D-line coach for the U with The Rock and everything, no. Now maybe, but he's big boy.
Yeah, like he benches 4 plates.
Yeah, and he said that the day he can't do that is the day he's going to go back to the boat.
Yeah. Crazy guy. Okay, next game.
I'm going to save that Texas-Oklahoma one for last because I'm sure we have a lot for that. This one's pretty quick, Tennessee versus Georgia. We said that this was supposed to be an interesting game, which it was. That first quarter or two, Tennessee was competitive. But it's just like Miami and Clemson. I think that Tennessee just doesn't have the horses yet. But they're in the right direction.
I would say their defense made a couple really impressive stands. Like they had that 4th down stop in the middle of the field where they just tried to quarterback sneak, and you saw guys leaping over and like grabbing the dude and like pulling him back. That was some of the most impressive for a defense that's undersized. Like everyone's going to be undersized against Georgia, except for like Alabama. And for them to pull off 2 big-time defensive stops on 4th down, like you have to give Tennessee a lot of credit for that.
I give them a lot of credit. I thought they played well. Like, again, they flinched. They flinched in the second or third quarter, and that's kind of where – I mean, Georgia has a good defense, so that's kind of what took over. Then I think Georgia has finally found a quarterback, I think. We'll see. What's his name? Bennett. He reminds me of Jake Fromm. He plays and looks like Jake Fromm, one that's just going to control the game, do what's asked, do the short passes, get the running game going. So,
but here's the thing: like that's all well and good when you're playing inferior opponents. But is Jake Fromm going to win you a game against Alabama?
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you ask me if we can do the show next Sunday. You ask me next Sunday, and I'll tell you what I think. If he can, even if Georgia loses, but he plays well, then I can sit here and say, okay, maybe this is their quarterback.
Yeah.
But what's his face when that one quarterback comes back? Who are you going to pick? You going to pick this kid or the one that had to sit out due to health reasons? But if this kid's playing well, if this is the only game you lose is Alabama, you stick with Bennett. You have to.
I don't know. I just don't see the upside there. Like Georgia has too many like high level football players on their offense to look that vanilla. And I don't know if it's the play calling. Like we had this conversation with a couple other teams that played, but is it the play calling holding them back from being more explosive, or is it just they're just not taking chances
on Georgia's offense? So Georgia runs that freaking pro style. So Clemson, Georgia looks like Alabama before Hurst got there. Mm-hmm. If anybody reads Nick Saban's books, he always believed in running the ball, fullback, high formation, double tight, run the football, which worked. They won national championships. But then right before Lane Kiffin got there, and then right when Lane Kiffin got there, he kind of told Nick, hey, do you know all the athletes you could probably get here if you ran this? You could still run the ball, which they do. Could you realize what kind of offense you can have in the SEC, what kind of recruits you can get here if you go to a spread, run the ball, but then have the ability to pass it? You're going to get some dudes to come here. And Nick kind of realized that, or Coach Saban, I keep saying Nick like I know him. Like Coach Saban did that. And Georgia looks like an Alabama from like 2010 and 11 and 12 right now. So I don't know if it's necessarily the play calling because they're going to run what they. It's like Mike Leach. You know, people can go to his play calling. If Georgia wants to run the football and be a pro style, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You could sit there and say it's their play calling. Like, I feel like one of these times they're going to pull an LSU and say we're going to go spread, run a pro style spread instead of this pro style under center stuff, and explode. So in a way, yes, I think so. But it's hard to argue when they went to the college football playoff all this time. They get to the national championship. So right now they're going to say, no, we're fine. But here eventually.
Like if you're Georgia, yeah, you're making it to the playoff. You're consistently a top 10 team. But then every time you get in that position where it's like, okay, the competition's better now, there's always a loss.
Right.
Like so will break through. So at what point do you say like this is the definition of insanity? We're doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not breaking us through.
You know, I would say that's this year, but since it's a COVID year, who knows if this would be the year? But Kirby Smart's at a place where I don't think he can. It's going to have to happen. He's at a place where they'll fire him, no matter what happens this year. I don't think that they will fire him, but his seat will get warm.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So I think that you're all right that the play calling in a way holds them back. But I can't sit here and argue that it is that because you're doing what you do. You're doing what you want to do. But I think here in a year, I think they're going to look at LSU and be like, what did they do so different? They went from the same thing to this, we're going to go pro spread. And that's what got Joe Brady to coach in the NFL now with the Carolina Panthers. I think if Georgia does that, it's going to come down between them and Alabama every time because they have the Alabama defense right now. Kirby Smart was defense coordinator for years.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It was, and then what about Pruitt's mask, his Mrs. Doubtfire cover over his head?
It's the one thing we need in this show. We need to be able to like throw up a picture of something. Because that was the stupidest, and he wore it the whole game.
Yep.
Like that. Never once did I see it covering his face. But evidently, like in Tennessee, they think COVID-19 happens through your ear holes. Because that's all he was covering. That and his hair. I don't. Again, like that needs your school chancellor or athletic director needs to step in, and it's like, hey, I get that you've got other stuff going on, but at the same time, like, wear this mask because that is just plain and simple. Like that dude just doesn't care.
Yeah, no, I hate wearing a mask, but when we have our contact days, it's on, and I hate it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There's times where I've pulled it this way to yell. I don't do this, but I pull it out. But I'm so far away from the kids, I don't think it's a big deal because it's hard to yell. It's hard to yell in that thing. But then when I'm around, it's on. Like I make sure that. So to me, if you're a college football coach making millions of dollars, how hard is it to keep the mask on? And it's not just for you; it's for the people around you.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
I don't know. It was just funny. It was a ridiculous look. And at one point, I had the thought, like, if you're going to wear your mask like that, you have to win this football game. Because if not, now you're just a meme. Like, I don't know. It was a bad look, especially that style of mask. That's that checkerboard Tennessee pattern.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like Miss Doubtfire. You're pretty much right.
That's what I thought of. I was like, it is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Rough look. Okay, ready for the next one?
Yeah, sorry guys. I was trying to figure out how to share my screen on the stream board or StreamYard. Can't figure it out, so we'll try it. I was going to find that picture. I'm letting everybody down. Oops, wrong one. See? All right, real quick. Florida, Texas A&M. I am so bad. I had some FanDuel bets going on, and I said Florida wins by at least 5.5. And Texas A&M said, Coach Steve, you are not allowed to win your retirement money on this game.
Make your $1,300. Get to retire.
Or at least pay off the car.
Yeah.
Florida looked good, and then I don't know how you say this kid's name for Texas A&M. Kellen Mond, is that how you say it?
Mond.
Yeah. He is a tall kid, and I watched him the other week. I'm like, he has weird throwing mechanics. Then I watched this whole game pretty much from start to finish. I had my computer going and the TV going. His release is quick, and that ball is fast. Mm-hmm. He is a good thrower. And if he gets those mechanics down, I think he'd be a decent, not an all-star NFL quarterback, but his height would help him be like a backup quarterback in the NFL. So Florida became Florida. It's a Dan Mullen team, like he did at Mississippi State, where they're so good that they screw it up.
My thing with Florida is like, ever since Urban Meyer left, they've been this team that like can't put it all together. Like they went a stretch of 10 years without having a competent offense, but had this world beater Florida Gator defense. And now they have one of the best offenses in college football, and their defense is just not on the field at all. And that has to really be rough to be a Florida fan because, like, we're finally scoring points, and now our defense just is not producing.
Right. You have a Heisman quarterback and Trask, who's really good. He was 23 of 32, 312 yards and 4 touchdowns. So they kind of held him under what he's been doing. I said Texas A&M should go back to the Big 12. But I had to take a step back because they played Alabama last week. So they looked good in the first quarter, and Alabama kind of woke up. But you're right, Florida's defense gave up 543 yards yesterday against Texas A&M, who Jimbo Fisher is trying to rebuild that program. I think he's overpaid. I don't think he needs to be making the Nick Saban money and Clemson and Dabo Swinney. But because he's a Nick Saban tree, and he won the national championship at Florida State. So they were like, oh, let's pay him. He is not earning that money right now, but yesterday was a big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Florida's offense is just fine. It's their defense all of a sudden. I don't know. Like
I don't know how to fix it. Like Admittedly, I'm not a college football coach for that reason, but they just don't look competent in any part of their defense to me.
It's just not consistent. It's yesterday they broke a lot, and if they try to do that with an Alabama and Ole Miss, even if Ole Miss plays that way, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I thought they had it figured out at the beginning of the game because Dan Mullen's offense, he was the offensive coordinator for Urban Meyer way back when, and so they run that quarterback run. That they run Ohio State's offense is exactly what Ohio State does. Dan Mullen started at first with Urban Meyer. He had to adapt this. His quarterback cannot run. He's not a runner, so they've adapted pretty well of what they want to do. I also think yesterday they kind of overlooked Texas A&M is a part of it. I think they came into the game. I don't think their defense is terrible. But yesterday they kind of came in and said, "Oh, they can't do anything." Then they realized this kid has an arm, quick release. The ball gets there fast because he's so tall. He doesn't even use his legs half the time. It's all upper body. If he got his legs into it, it's going to take off. That's what I do sometimes. Watch quarterback mechanics, and he's like straight up down, throws it. It gets there perfectly. If he actually turned his whole body around, got his hips into it, and threw it, he's going to break somebody's fingers. And Florida's going to be fine, but
yeah, I don't know. Are you ready for my props?
Your props.
Yeah, I have a prop this week. Yeah, push back. Okay, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat. Okay, I have something I have to say. I think Texas A&M had way more than their capacity in the stadium.
Oh my goodness, them, and there was another place yesterday where.
And I think, again, tinfoil hat here, the more these games start to matter down the stretch, I really think you're going to see people break these COVID protocols to put a bunch of people in the stadium and win these games.
And then that's going to happen. There was some game last weekend or the weekend before where the student section broke the rules and they had the security in there kick them out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so it depends on what state you're in, and it depends on the school. If Texas says you're allowed X amount of percentage of fans, then it comes down to the school. So if Texas A&M says, okay, the state of Texas says we can have 20 or 30% of our stadium, we're going to have, and then Texas A&M says, okay, then we're going to have 20 or 30%. Now that stadium is so huge because it's the 12th man. It looks like there's a lot of people because 20% of whatever is a lot of people. 20% for the U of I is like 8,000 people. 20% for Michigan or a Texas A&M,
that's might be 20,000 people.
Yeah, 30. Right. So I don't know if they're breaking protocol because Dan Mullen came out yesterday after the game and said he wants fans in Florida. He wants fans there. But their AD came out and said, no, we're going to go by our rules. Just because Florida State had fans. So State of Florida says they can. But it's up to the school. Yeah. Florida State said, yes, because we suck. We need whatever we can get. Florida's good. So they're going to say no. So Dan Mullen said, we want fans. Their AD said, no, we're going to go by what we want to do. I don't think you're going to see people break them. I get why that may happen because, they need the fans, this and that. I just really hope athletic directors don't risk that. I think Texas A&M had too many fans, but it's hard for me to sit there and say, oh, the state of Texas, if they say it's okay, then it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the state, whatever they want to do. But I think even the announcer said at one point, they're like, I think we're above capacity today. And then they've showed the stands a couple times and there's no distancing. Everyone seemed pretty packed in there. It got loud, which is weird to hear a stadium get loud again because we haven't heard that in baseball or basketball or, it was cool to see. But at the same time, I'm I think they're skirting the rules here a little bit, try and get an old home win for their first top 5 win.
Yeah, if we don't hear anything about it by Wednesday, then I think they didn't break any rules because if they did, it's going to get out. You're not going to hide that. Somebody's going to watch the video and go to the ticket sales and all this and that and say, okay, what happened, talk to security. If we don't hear anything, then that's just their rules. And as long as they don't break their state health department guidelines, there's nothing that can be done. But you would think as a school, I don't know, if they say, okay, 20%, so let's say you're allowed 30,000 people in there. As a school, as an athletic director, I might say, you know what, let's only have 15,000. I know that's a lot, but if you could spread them out, just say, let's just have 15,000 to be on the safe side and then gradually allow more. I know Notre Dame, their first game of the year that was at home against Duke, they showed fans in the stands. They didn't have that many, but their rules were, so they had people sitting by each other. So the announcer said, okay, what's their rules? And they came out and said, they have to prove that they live together. So if you live in an apartment with somebody, you have to prove it. If you're a family, you have to prove it. They can sit by each other, but they have to have their mask on at all times. If they don't, they get kicked out. And they're making professors volunteer to go do that stuff. So that's where you're going to see professors get mad about sports, but they've got to realize that Notre Dame's football program and TV deal pays for your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you're seeing that happen. So I don't know if Texas A&M broke any rules, but you're going to start seeing some football coaches that have no fans say, we want fans. If they can, why can't we? And it's just like Illinois high school football. Washington just reversed their decision to play high school football, and it was one of the biggest hot spots for COVID.
The original.
Not playing. So it's the same thing. Like, we're going to sit here and say, how is it fair for them to play and we can't? And we could be safe.
Yeah.
Dan Mullen's going to say, why can they have fans? And Florida's going to allow us to have fans, and we're not. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't think they broke any rules. If I don't hear anything by Tuesday or Wednesday, then they're fine. But you're right. It did look like a lot. And I even said that. I was like, that looks like a lot of fans. And Ole Miss had a lot of fans too.
Yeah, they did. But you see, like, a lot of those southern states, their restrictions aren't as tough.
No, and the crazy thing is they're doing just fine. Like, they could be worse. Like, when you hear, oh, they can have fans, they can do this, they can do that, you would think it'd be worse. And it's not yet. We're getting to the winter, so we're going to find out.
Yeah. Once flu season starts, again, we're not going to get into this, but we'll see how it goes. I'm concerned.
I think you're going to see, the last thing I'll say, I don't think you're going to see athletic directors make those stupid decisions. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that.
That's something that, as an athletic director, if it comes back that, like, hey, yeah, I let us go over capacity because we were playing Florida. Like, you're going to lose your job. Or should, in my opinion. Like, at that point, if your state health official has said, like, here's the number, and you just ignored it, there are things that are bigger than college football.
That's why I don't think you're going to see them break the rules. So,
yeah.
We'll find out because the Tennessee Titans might have broke some rules. So, that's the NFL. We'll find out. All right. The big one that took 4, 5, 6, 8, 10,000 overtimes so me and Brad were texting back and forth during like after halftime of this freaking game because we both hate Sam Ehlinger, whatever the hell his name is. I'll let you go because this one.
Okay. First thing I'm going to say is I felt like an idiot. Sam Ehlinger played a really good game. Like, that dude got his ass kicked, which I don't know if I can say that on YouTube or not, but just got beat up and fought through it to keep Texas in that game. Like, I don't think Texas is in that game with any other quarterback on their roster.
No.
It's the first time I can say that. Like, I've watched their games before and thought, like, they would be better with somebody who's more comfortable throwing downfield. And Sam Ehlinger, like, he did a lot of it with his feet and made that Texas offense look competent, which makes me wonder, back to this, is it the play calling or is it Sam Ehlinger?
You have to go with both. But so Sam Ehlinger does one of two things. He's really good in the first half and bad in the second half, or he's okay in the first half, and then they get down, and then all of a sudden he goes, I'm going to play, or we're going to do this. But when they were down against Oklahoma, Oklahoma was dropping 8 people. And that's how he's able to do it with his feet. They were dropping 8, playing man with a cover 2 behind it, because Grinch plays a 2-5, like a 2-man down defense, like the spread defensive thing, like a 3-4 basically, or a 3-5.
Like a nickel version of a 3-4.
Yeah, and that's what he ran at Washington State, because Washington State in the Pac-12, you have some fast guys. So that's the perfect defense to play in the Big 12. I think Grinch is a good defensive coordinator. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's his first or second year. He's trying to get it going. He was at Ohio State a year or two ago. He left Washington State, went to Ohio State for a year, and then came over to Oklahoma. They were trying to not lose the game, and so he was dropping 8. And Sam Ehlinger said, "I'm going to run." And so I give Ehlinger credit for doing that, but it's also like Oklahoma allowed you to do that because they drop 8. If they drop 8 and you don't take off and run, then it's your fault. So I don't want to give him all the credit because he helped them get into that situation. He only scored 17 points until 6 minutes left in the game. But I have to give them credit. He didn't flinch. He was just like, I'll play. But I mean, if you look at his numbers, his passing numbers, he was 30 of 53, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But he also had 112 rushing yards. He was our leading rusher by 90 yards.
And 4 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah. And so I don't think he's as bad as you and I claim out to be, but there's just something about him that I don't like, I don't trust. Texas isn't as good as everybody thinks they are. I don't think they're as good as everyone proclaims. Oklahoma, good for them for sticking it out. Spencer Rattler got benched, in that second quarter.
So what do you think about that? Like, you obviously have your starting quarterback who you put the backup in, and he looked okay, but he's obviously not Spencer Rattler. Like, what do you think of doing that, like, wake-up call? Listen, buddy, like, your job isn't guaranteed here.
I like it, but, so he came out because when he got hit there, his arm was funny, so they weren't looking at him, so they put the backup in. But then Lincoln Riley kind of was like, screw it. Spencer Rattler, besides the last game, is turning the ball over a lot, whether it's fumbles. He doesn't hold on the ball very well. When he runs holding on to like Walter Payton, and then it gets hit out. I liked it because people forget Lincoln Riley coaches the quarterbacks. So it's not like a head coach is just going to say, hey, I don't coach you, but I'm going to bench you. He understands his quarterbacks. So if he knows Spencer Rattler and says, if I do this, this might wake him up. I liked it because Lincoln Riley's under a lot of pressure. He's under pressure as a quarterback developer because you've had Baker Mayfield come in, then you had Murray come in, then you had Hurst come in. You've had these transfer quarterbacks that did things at other schools, and then they come in. Now, he did great things with them, so he's a great play caller, great offense. Now you have a kid that's a freshman. Let's see what you do. Now, when I say pressure, it's because they're expected to go to the playoffs. They're expected to do this, and now they're not going to.
Yeah.
Now, give this guy here in 2 years, if Spencer Rattler or even next year doesn't improve, then I think he becomes more under pressure as a head coach and the quarterback's coach. But I love the wake-up call, especially when the other quarterback didn't look too bad. But then Oklahoma changed their play calling. Lincoln Riley, they ran the ball a lot more in that second half. They ran a lot of that GT counter stuff. The only thing that made me mad about Lincoln Riley, I don't like calling out coaches in college or NFL. They know more football. They've forgotten more football than I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Texas had no timeouts. It was third down with like 2 minutes left in the game or whatever it was. Run the football. Do not pass it. I am a high school nobody coach. You are Lincoln Riley, who makes millions upon millions of dollars, who could run for the governor of Oklahoma and win tomorrow. You could go coach the Dallas Cowboys if you wanted to. Run the football to let that clock run. Take the penalty if you don't get the first down. Let the clock roll down. Take a timeout or take the penalty to give you more punting room to punt the ball down to get it to bounce, to get him way down there. To let the ball or the clock roll off. You pass it. Now it's 4th and 12. You have to punt it. Now you give them a chance. And that's what happened. Run the football like you did the whole second half.
Okay, so I disagree with you. And like your whole thing about we're not at the level of Lincoln Riley, me less so than you. Okay. If I'm calling the plays at that point, I just put the ball in my quarterback's hands and he fumbled it the play before. And the announcers said it perfectly. They were like, no chance in hell they're letting Lincoln Riley run this football again. So at that point, if you're the Texas defense, why aren't you just selling out on stopping their running back? Like, there's no chance you get that call, and your defense hasn't stopped a nosebleed all day. I kind of like the idea of I'm going to chance it, put the ball in my quarterback's hands on a drag route, which they had run all game successfully. Like, just give them the option to go win it right there. Like, I don't hate that, especially like you said, like you like their defensive coordinator there at OU, and he could be a really good coach. But yesterday, he was not calling a good game. He just wasn't. So why not go try to win it?
And when I tweeted that out, and then I liked it because I said, "Yeah, I understand he wants to take the shot to win the game. Like, let's just end this because I don't want to go into overtime." But does the risk outweigh the reward? So that risk that you're about to take with a quarterback who is not, he may be confident right now, but he hasn't been fully confident. You ran the ball over them all second half. Why not just run the ball? And it's about clock game at that point.
Yeah.
So I understand trying to end it. I understand all that. But just because of what happened, though, like I said, if he would have completed, he'd been the best. That's the thing. So I'm going to take a step back. If he would have completed, that's the best play call in college football.
Best idea ever, right?
But I just can't help but if Texas had a timeout, do that. Do that play. Because if you run the ball, they're going to call a timeout. Since they had no timeouts, by the time you let that play clock roll down that 40 seconds, now it's going to be like a minute and 20 seconds. Take the penalty, punt the ball, take another few seconds. Now they're down to a minute, 10 seconds. It's going to be tough to get them down the field to win the game. I don't even know exactly what time was left. It might even be they might have been left with 45 seconds. And that's kind of what you have to look at. Because like Oklahoma, it doesn't sound like a lot, but they had 208 rushing yards. But I guarantee you all that came in the second half. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Spencer Rattler, his numbers aren't bad. 23 of 35, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So he plays well. It's just the fumbles and it's the timing of his decision making. But maybe that being benched kind of woke him up and said, "Oh my goodness, I could lose this." Like Lincoln Riley's not afraid to bench me.
Yeah. Well, like we've talked about this before, like you don't really like Spencer Rattler because he's arrogant. But I think as the coach, you have that much confidence. Like if you know your guy has that much confidence, setting his ass on the bench for 2 or 3 series might just knock him down a peg and make him start playing smarter football.
Right. But Oklahoma is not Oklahoma, what they used to be. Texas is not Texas. Does Herman get fired at Texas this year if they don't continue to change?
Yeah. I think you have to look at it because how many years in a row do you get to just blame like, well, our team isn't complete?
When you've had this quarterback for a couple of years now who is trying to play well, but you have a defense that's inconsistent. You got an offense that's inconsistent. You're not getting these huge time. Ever since Mack Brown left, that place is just. Ever since he got fired, and now look what he's doing.
Mack Brown's doing it in North Carolina.
Yeah, look, they put up over 50 points, and now Mack Brown is reborn. He went through a lot of stuff at Texas at the end. People were out to get him, and he took time away. Now he's kind of refreshed, and now look what he's doing. So,
I mean, being the head coach at University of Texas has to be like a no-win job.
Yeah, it's what was the guy Strong? He was a defense coordinator. Now he's at UCF. He's a good defensive mind. He went to Texas, and that's a lot of pressure. They did not give him a lot. You got to give a guy more than 3 years, but Texas has got money and they want to win, and they spent some money and they got to win.
Yeah,
and that's why Nick's.
If when you get fired at Texas, does Matthew McConaughey do it?
Sure, and he puts in his class that he teaches there too.
Yeah. Like you're sitting in the conference room waiting for the AD to show up, and Matthew McConaughey walks in like a leather jacket and cowboy hat.
And he says those numbers are rookie numbers, man. You gotta get those numbers up. And
well, no, he's been like, man, it would have been a lot cooler if you would have won that game.
All right, get out.
I wish. In my head that is how. And in the middle of the side of the room, Bevo, the bowl, is just sitting there like shitting on the floor.
That's how you get fired. It's like, all right, you got 10 minutes before this bowl starts running through the office.
He's gonna run you out of here. Okay,
right.
You ready to pick some games?
All right, we're gonna go do our week 7 picks. We picked a couple. We're not gonna do what we did last week. That was too much. But we're already.
Can we say scores?
Huh?
Can we say who's
so
in the scores?
One game has not been played that we picked. They play Wednesday for some reason. I thought it was Saturday. It was Wednesday. Coastal Carolina versus the Raging Cajuns play on Tuesday or Wednesday. But the rest of them, I got 15 of them right. Brad got 17 of them right. There was one that I got screwed over on. I don't remember, and I was mad that I picked them. Oh, you picked A&M, and I picked Florida. That's kind of what did it. So this time, we just picked some games that we'll talk about next week, and that's all we're going to pick. We're not going to sit here and do 40 games. So first one we thought about talking about, which plays Friday, was BYU and Houston. Houston looked a little rough against Tulane, but then kind of woke up. BYU almost lost to UTEP. Was it UTEP yesterday?
No, I don't
know. It was a closer game than what I thought it was going to be. UTSA, they only beat them 27-20. So BYU did not play very well. So this one is going to be very interesting because I said BYU was a sleeper and that they could compete for that college football playoff this year because of COVID. So if they beat Houston, you have to sit and they go undefeated. They almost sneak in.
Yeah,
they're good. They have 4-year players on their team right now. They have an offensive line that's 320 pounds across the board, I think. I'm going to go with BYU. But
I'm going to go with Houston.
You would.
In that, well, no, it's just that, like, I like Dana Holgorsen. I think you were talking about coaches being reborn. I think he got worn down by West Virginia and kind of got run out of town there. And I like his offense. I've always liked him as a coach. I think Houston wins this one.
Mike Leach coaching tree.
Absolutely. The one time you'll hear me be like, yeah, go air raid.
He incorporated the air raid in the run game and RPOs.
Yeah.
Mike Leach is the only guy left that does like the old school air raid.
It's everybody else light.
It's air raid 2.0.
Yeah.
All right, Kentucky and Tennessee. This one, we just kind of picked it because I think we kind of want to see Kentucky do something. But then we kind of want to see what Tennessee's defense is made of too. I'm going to pick Kentucky because I think they need this. If they get this, I think Stoops may be able to keep his job. But I kind of want to see Kentucky win. So I'm going to go with Kentucky.
I hate it because I'm the same way. I want to see Kentucky do well just because I think they're fun to watch. But I think Tennessee is mad because I think they fully believe they gave that game away. So I'm going to take Tennessee.
You would. All right. LSU, Florida. Now, at the beginning of the year, even though I knew LSU lost a lot in all their coaches, I was going to say this is one of the biggest games. I don't think LSU is going to be ranked anymore.
No.
I haven't looked to see if they've come out with it yet today. NFL is going on right now, but since the Bears don't play, I don't care as much. This one, I got to go with Florida. Florida's going to be mad that they just lost Texas A&M. LSU has got to figure it out, and I don't think they can with having such young players to figure it out. Ed's a good coach. I just hope he doesn't explode everything. Like, I hope he doesn't take over play calling. I hope he doesn't do this or that. I am going to go with Florida, though, just because LSU looks like something's not going.
Yeah. I do like how we have just naturally gone to opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, I'm kind of considering this bounce back week for a lot of our picks. And I think LSU, just purely based off, I think their team has more talent, maybe not experience.
Well,
but I think they might have more talent. And Ed Ogeron is one of those guys that will like rally them up to come back and win a game.
I almost think this may be an Alabama Ole Miss game because LSU's offense isn't terrible, and Florida's offense is not terrible. It's their defense. So we might see another 1,000-yard game, like combined.
Like who flinches again?
And that's kind of where I don't know if LSU's younger players flinch first. Ed won't flinch on the side. Ed's going to be Ed. Dan Mullen's going to be.
I don't think LSU's quarterback will either.
So this might be an Ole Miss Alabama game all over again, which is fine with me. I like seeing points scored, so this might be.
Yeah. It'll be one of those classic high-scoring SEC games that evidently we need to get used to.
All right, Georgia and Bama. Nick Saban is 21-0 against former coaches after yesterday. He will now face Kirby Smart once again, who he has beaten in the regular season and in the national championship. Georgia's defense looks like an Alabama defense that we've seen for years. Their offense looks okay. They have a young quarterback. His first test really was this Tennessee team, and he passed it. Now he's going to have to face Alabama, but Alabama's defense yesterday did not look very good. But you're going to face a pro-style team, which slows it down a little bit. You might see Georgia do some up-tempo. I'm going to say you're going to see some up-tempo, but that's not what they do. So it may not work so well. So I think, again, this comes down to who flinches, and Georgia defense is going to flinch against this Bama offense that is not skipped a beat. They look good. So Bama's offense is the reason why they're going to win this game.
We got to agree on one, I guess. I think, Bama, this is going into a game that, like, they're playing a team that is basically Bama looked at and is like, this is just a ghost of what we used to be. And we were the best in football at it. So we're not going to lose this game.
No, I think it's going to be exciting at first because Georgia has a good defense and Kirby Smart understands Alabama kind of like Lane Kiffin does. He understands what they're going to do. But it's Nick Saban. He's the Jedi Master, and the rest of them are chasing him.
And I also think Georgia has the offensive line to like still be able to run the ball against Alabama. I'm just trying to believe that it's going to be a good game.
I think the first half will. I almost guarantee the first half will be okay. Then it's going to be who adjusts well. But it depends if Alabama's offense shows up like they did yesterday.
Yeah,
they're going to score 50 points. Now, they might give up 20-some or 30 just because I don't know what's going on with their defense. But if you score 50 points, your defense doesn't have to.
I mean, let's be real honest, though. Georgia's defense is way better than Ole Miss's.
Right, and that's why I'm curious to see how Bama's offense is going to handle that. But confidence is confidence. So,
yeah.
All right,
last one has more confidence than
last one that I have to let Brad pick first because I need more time to think. Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. Brad can go first.
Okay.
My heart's telling me to pick the guy, but I know.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and I hate myself for doing this. This is at Mississippi State.
Yeah, I believe so.
2 bad losses in a row, right?
Bad losses, yep.
Mississippi State. Like, I think they win this game, probably. I think Texas A&M is one of those teams that probably isn't used to being a front runner. you know? And this is a classic Mike Leach game where it's like, okay, yeah, everyone thought we were bad, and now we're going to throw for 700 yards.
This whole hour and 44 minutes, which I promised we wouldn't do, but we did. The next time we'll get better. Each week we'll go down by 20 minutes. I've been thinking about this. Part of me says Texas A&M because they have some of their offense figured out already.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in the system already for a couple seasons. Mike Leach's team is figuring it out. But is Texas A&M on a high right now because they beat Florida and they think they're going to walk all over Mississippi State? Mississippi State figures it out. But Mississippi State does not look good. And I don't want to go against Mike Leach, but a part of me wants to, and that's why I'm stalling for this pick.
Just grow a pair, Steve.
All right, I'm going to go with the Pirate. I think the Pirate flips his lid this week in practice. You guys need to go watch the video of 2000 and oh goodness, it was a 2008 or 9 when it was right after 11-2 year at Texas Tech, and they played Baylor and they won. There's a video of Mike Leach flipping his lid because of how they played, and it's the best thing I've ever seen. One of the best things I've ever seen. So I think he does that this week. I think he's going to flip with his fisherman's net mask. Well, Mike Leach had his off half the time. He doesn't care. I don't think he
cares.
He's pretty healthy too. I don't think
he's in that like Saban, nothing exists in the world outside of football.
So I'll go with Mississippi State, but I won't be surprised if Texas A&M wins. But maybe Texas A&M is on a high, and they're like, oh, blah, 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 and Mississippi State just comes in. Maybe Costello figures it out. So we'll go with that one.
Okay. We did it. We knocked like 15 minutes off, Steve.
We did. All right. So that's the show. Again, nobody watched, I just want everybody to know that. But that's more than what I expected to watch.
Negative viewers.
No, this is a growing process. So I understand people that I've talked to about YouTube. We just grind it out. I don't like saying, but like you just work at it and it gets to where it needs to go. So hopefully this grows into something that we wanted to, but guess what? We have fun with it, so I really don't care. And it's a Sunday. People are watching NFL. Like we planned to do this early in the morning, but I was trying to figure this out, so I kind of screwed it up. But anybody that listens later on, like, subscribe, share. If it's podcast form, try to share it out for people. Brad, I appreciate you coming on doing the co-hosting. One day, maybe just solo dojo when Brad's life takes over. But
yeah,
stuck with me.
Yeah, possibly next week I might be tuning in from a tent in Louisiana.
Maybe you can get Drew Brees on.
Yeah, I'll get on that. Yeah.
Get Sean Payton. I'll send him a message. Get Sean Payton on there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be like, hey, I heard you know Eastern Illinois University. You should come on this podcast.
I met him once. He don't remember, but I met him one time. He had a Super Bowl ring walking around. Showing it off.
Wear it all the time.
All right, guys. So anybody that listened, thanks for listening.